Welcome to our series on Ireland's trees. In this episode, we're going to explore the wonderful, very beautiful, non-native sycamore tree. Sycamore trees were first introduced to Ireland about 400 years ago, round about the time of the plantation. Up until then, all the people that have lived in Ireland for the thousands upon thousands of years wouldn't have been familiar with this tree. Yet now this is one of the most recognisable trees in Ireland. Go to any school around Ireland and they'll recognise the sycamore tree. They'll recognise that classic maple leaf shape. And sycamore is one of that group of maples. Maple's the overriding group and the species sycamore. It's a tree that's very well adapted to Ireland. It is native all the way across Europe. Was brought into Ireland only those few hundred years ago, but it seems to love our soils. It is tough enough to be able to live right on the coast. They can live high up in the mountains. They can even take, to a certain extent, some of the acidic soils that we have up and down the west coast of Ireland. Sycamore is certainly a tree that thrives in the Irish landscape. And quite often, non-native species don't support much life, whereas sycamore does. It supports a lot of life. They have beautiful little flowers a little bit earlier on in the year, which are pollinated by insects. And a huge amount of insects rely on those flowers. If you stand under a sycamore tree in May, you'll be treated to a buzzing, a humming sound from all the hoverflies and so many different species of bee that are all getting the sweet little reward that they get from those flowers and pollinating them as a result. And of course pollinating them so that they turn into their seeds, and the seeds with that famous little wing on it that we know as the little helicopter seeds that we all know and all seen throughout our youth. To identify sycamore trees, you of course need to look at the leaf, have a feel of the leaf. And as you'll see here in this, they grow in so many different sizes. Some of them will be much larger than your hand, some of them much smaller. Some of them would fit inside the palm of your hand. But they all have these 5 little points with these deep indentations in between. And they all have that reddy green stalk, which really makes them stand out from a lot of the other maple species. In springtime, their leaves, like so many trees, are a very, very light green, and then they get pumped full of toxins, which helps protect them from the myriad of insects that are trying to eat them up. At this time of year, late summer, coming into autumn time, these trees are already starting to have their leaves broken down. Sycamore trees quite often are attacked by a fungus, black spot fungus, and you can see it all over the leaves here. Soon, over the next few weeks, these trees will build that little line of cells which will chop off the stem and drop the leaf onto the ground, preparing itself for the winter time. And that leaf then, of course, will be recycled by all of the different microbes, the worms and the other characters that live in the soil. But that process has already begun with the black spot fungus. Doesn't damage the tree overall. The tree will bounce back next year and show no signs of this attack. But it's a good way of identifying sycamore in the later time of year. So in winter time, one of the ways to help tell a sycamore is their bright green buds, which protects the leaves, protects next year's leaves. Next year's leaves are wrapped up inside that bud already and hasn't even dropped this year's. And it protects it from the winter frosts, and it protects it from the bugs that are trying to attack it, much like this little ladybird is protecting it from the bugs. The little ladybird eating up the green flies and the other characters that will try and come and punch holes in the leaves. Another way to identify sycamore trees in the wintertime is their bark with all of its little cracks. It cracks off like in little plates, and it has a pinkish tinge to it, especially when you see a bit of sunshine, a little bit of that winter sun just lighting up the tree from any kind of distance. You'll spot the little bit of pink. It's a great way to tell sycamore from a distance. And as you can see on this tree, as well as all of the different aphids and other tiny little bugs that love to eat the leaves, as well as the ladybirds that like to eat them, as well as the birds that are eating those, a whole food web is supported by sycamore. But as you can see on the trunk here, lots of mosses and lots of different lichens or lichens. And then of course, loads of other little bark beetles and other characters that are hiding out inside here. And spiders hunting some of those insects, and harvestmen hunting some of those spiders. So sycamore trees have a lot of uses. One big sycamore tree can drink 40, 50 or more litres of water every day, sucking all that moisture out of the ground. And of course that helps to regulate our water, it helps to clean our water, and it helps to slow down the flow. All of the extra rainfall that's being dumped upon us with our changing climate. Sycamores are one of the many things that help us to control that dump of water, help us control the flooding. But as well as that, sycamore trees have always had use. The wood has always had use. It's a very hard wood. It's great for burning, but it's also great for making all sorts of different things, all sorts of furniture and the rest of it. It's as hard as oak, but doesn't last as long as oak. It's often been used as kitchen utensils because it doesn't seem to absorb any of the flavours or the aromas from whatever that you're cooking, no matter how strongly scented your curry is. Sycamores, such a recognisable tree in our landscape, despite the fact that they're reasonably new to Irish ecology. They've only been brought in the last few hundred years. Still, most school children, most young people will be able to identify a sycamore, and often it's the seed that helps to identify them. Quite often known as helicopters, they have this strong green seed, and any plant that has a seed, it needs to distribute that seed, and that's a problem for it. So they all have different tactics and different ways of doing it. And the sycamore's tactic is it's produced this little wing, and when the seed drops, when it's ripe, the time is ready, that little wing helps, especially on a windy day, to carry it a reasonable distance away from the tree. And anybody that has sycamore on their land or near their land will know just how prolific this can be. Once this seed, once that little green piece here hits a little bit of soil and it gets a little bit of moisture, it will germinate very quickly. They can grow in the sand dunes, they can grow high in the hills, on the margins of boggy places, and you'll even see them growing out of gutters and in little eaves and cracks of old buildings. Anywhere where there's any bit of soil for them to get going, they'll grow. They grow in our hedgerows, they grow in our fields. So for something that's so new to Ireland, they support a lot of life, they're prolific, they have really taken over, and they're a wonderful thing.